Hi, this is Ral West. In this LinkedIn Live session, I'll show you how to build a culture of accountability that inspires ownership without micromanaging your team. We'll talk about how to create systems and expectations that encourage follow through, boost performance, and free you up to focus on growth. So, what is accountability and why is it important? Accountability means being responsible for your actions, decisions, and behaviors, and accepting the consequences that come with them. So, here's why accountability is important. First, it's enhanced performance. When individuals are held accountable, they're more likely to focus on their tasks and meet deadlines and strive for excellence. And it builds trust. Accountability builds trust within teams and relationships as individuals can rely on others to fulfill their commitments. And it promotes learning. Mistakes are opportunities for growth, and accountability encourages individuals to learn from their errors and make better choices in the future. Next, increased commitment. When individuals are accountable for their work, they're more likely to be committed to their goals and see the value of their contributions. And a stronger workplace culture. A culture of accountability fosters a sense of responsibility and shared purpose, leading to a more positive and productive work environment. Then there's better leadership. Leaders who are accountable for their actions inspire trust and motivate their teams to achieve common goals. And improved decision making. Accountability encourages thoughtful decision making as individuals consider the potential consequences of their actions. And there's reduced conflict. When individuals are accountable for their actions, misunderstandings and conflicts are less likely to arise. And finally, you have increased innovation. Accountability empowers individuals to take initiative and contribute to innovation by fostering a sense of ownership and responsibility. So now let's look at culture and what it means. Culture isn't just internal. It's how the world sees your business. There's a myth that culture just happens. You may have heard that before, but really culture is what people do when no one's watching. And culture isn't something that just happens. It's something you must intentionally create, and it starts with knowing exactly what you stand for. Here's the reality. Culture is a byproduct of what you tolerate, celebrate, and reinforce. And if you don't create it intentionally, you'll inherit whatever shows up. So building a culture of accountability starts with your values. Too many businesses skip this step and it shows. But when you build your culture around clear values and principles, everything changes. From how your team shows up to how your customers experience your brand. When building a culture of accountability, start with one simple question. What do you want your business to be known for? Your culture is shaped not only by how your team operates, but by how your customers and vendors and community experience your brand. And that begins with clarity. You need to be clear about defining your position. What's your identity? What do you stand for? Be clear and embed your values. Align your internal culture with your external reputation. And engage your team. Use tools and communication to keep everyone excited and aligned. When your values guide your people and your presence, culture becomes a growth engine and not just a buzzword. So define your values. Start with what matters most to you as a leader and communicate them clearly, whether it's for one team member or a full organization. And live them out loud. Let your customers and community see your values in action. And you can't have accountability without clarity, especially clarity about your culture. If your team doesn't know what's expected, if your values aren't lived and visible, and if your team is inconsistent, you'll never get true ownership. But when your values are clear, and upheld consistently, people know how to behave. Decisions are easier and faster. Trust grows, and results follow. Accountability becomes part of the culture when your values are consistent, visible, and shared by everyone. Accountability isn't about micromanaging. It's about systems that work, even if people are operating remotely. With more teams working virtually, building a culture of accountability looks a bit different than it used to, but the goal is the same: clarity, consistency, and results. And the solution? Set up systems that track output, not time. Create standard operating procedures so expectations are crystal clear. Use reporting tools to track progress. Visibility matters no matter where your team is. And focus on results, not hours. Whether it's a virtual assistant or full-time staff, measure by the outcomes. You don't need to watch over every move. Just implement systems that show you what matters. That's how you create accountability and trust. Start by defining your core values, and this goes beyond just buzzwords. A poster that says integrity, excellence, innovation isn't enough. Real values aren't just words on a wall, they're principles that guide behavior. They tell your team what matters here, how we make decisions, what great looks like, what we stand for, and what we don't. So how do you define meaningful values? You start with you, the founder. What do you believe in? What frustrates you? What do you want to see more of in the world? Reflect on past team wins and fails. What values were present when things worked and missing when they didn't? Keep it human and real. Replace integrity with we do what we say even when it's hard. And replace innovation with we test, we learn, we ship. And limit it to 3 to 5 core values. If everything is a value, nothing is. Instead of saying accountability, I might define it like this: extreme ownership. Everyone owns their results, good or bad. We fix mistakes fast and always follow through. Next, you need to communicate your values over and over again. Once your values are defined, they need to live in every corner of your business. You can't just mention them at orientation and call it a day. You have to bake them into the day-to-day because repetition creates culture. So where to reinforce your values? Well, in your hiring. Use your values to filter candidates and to sell them on working with your company. In your onboarding, share stories that bring your values to life. And don't forget your team meetings. Start with a value spotlight, for example. Performance reviews. This is a good opportunity to evaluate people based on both results and their alignment with the company's values. Use them in your marketing copy. Let customers see what you stand for, and in all your client communications. Your values help set the customer expectations. People remember what you repeat, so let your values be the chorus. Don't forget to live them out loud, especially at the top. You can't ask your team to be accountable if you're not modeling it. Your leadership sets the tone, period. Every time you show up prepared, own a mistake, give direct feedback respectfully, hold the line on quality or behavior, and reward aligned actions, not just outcomes, you're building a culture of accountability. And when you don't, when you excuse or ignore behavior that violates your values, you erode it. Here's an example. A business owner had a manager who was brilliant, but often late and disorganized. They delivered results, but caused team friction. Their value, the company value, was respect each other's time, or respect for each other's time. Well, keeping that manager without addressing the misalignment would have signaled, oh, this value only matters sometimes. So the owner of this business had the hard conversation and they made a plan. The manager needed to improve or move on. So culture is kept through courageous consistency. Next, you have to create systems that reinforce accountability. Values guide behavior, but systems make it easier to follow through. If your team is constantly guessing what to do, how to do it, or when things are due, even the best values won't hold. You need to build accountability into your operations. Set clear goals and KPIs for every role. Everyone should know what success looks like for them. You can use shared task tools like ClickUp, Asana, Trello. Visibility reduces micromanagement and promotes self-direction. Hold regular check-ins, weekly or bi-weekly one-on-ones to keep performance aligned and problems small. Document your expectations in your standard operating procedures or SOPs. Make sure there's no ambiguity and no excuses. Use dashboards for transparency. Have a public metric that fosters ownership and healthy peer accountability. When expectations are documented and visible, accountability becomes the default, not the exception. And be sure you reward alignment, not just results. If you only reward the outcomes, people will chase numbers, often at the cost of your culture. But if you reward behaviors that reflect your values, you build a culture that sustains performance long term. Here's some ways to reinforce value-aligned behavior. Celebrate a team member who owned a mistake and fixed it. Give shout-outs for collaboration and initiative or problem solving. Tie your bonuses to how well someone models the values. Maybe include value scores in your peer reviews. And share customer stories where your team went above and beyond. Remember, what you recognize, you replicate. But what do you do when values are violated? No matter how strong your culture is, there will be moments when someone veers off course. And the key is to address it fast, direct, and fairly. So, how to handle a misalignment? It's important to point to the value, not just the behavior. So if we have a value around transparency, not sharing that issue early broke that trust. Stay factual, not emotional. Focus on the action and its impact and not assumptions. And give people a chance to course correct. Most people want to improve. They just don't need to know how. And you need to decide if this is a coaching issue or a culture issue. If it's something that's repeated or rooted in who they are, it might not be a fit. Remember, your values aren't real your values aren't real until you're willing to defend them. So, what's the ROI of a values-based accountability culture? Why go through all this? Well, it's because the payoff is massive. When your team is aligned around shared values, here's what you get. You get higher performance with less oversight, faster decision-making, more trust and less drama, better retention and morale, and a business that reflects who you are and attracts who you want to serve. Here's a checklist to help you get started. Define your 3 to 5 core values. Write real-world definitions and examples. Share them during onboarding, meetings, and in your marketing. Model them in your leadership. Build them into hiring and reviews and recognition. Use systems to support consistent follow-through. And hold the line when they're violated. Remember, culture doesn't scale with size. It scales with clarity. Here's some final thoughts. Be sure you build the culture that you want to work in. You didn't become an entrepreneur to babysit a team. You did it to create freedom and impact and alignment. A culture of accountability frees you from chasing and checking and correcting. It lets your team thrive, and it lets you step back without things falling apart. And it all starts with the values that you define today. If you want to take a deeper dive into subjects such as this one, please subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter, Ral's Success Principles. And subscribe to my YouTube channel too, Ral West. Visit my website, www.ralwest.com, to check out my new Living the Dream Mastermind program. In this program, over a 12-month period, I will teach a small group of owners of 7 to 8 figure businesses all the principles that I have learned throughout my 40 plus years as an entrepreneur. They will learn how to run their business as an owner and not an operator, so that they can have the freedom to live a better life. And I know what I'm talking about because I did it in our own business, and we are living our dream. Thank you for joining me today.